If this goes on, don't panic. Bringing hope to the world through speculative fiction.
Hello and welcome to episode 17. In this episode, we will be interviewing editor for the magazine of fantasy and science fiction and author of 9 Bar Blues, Sheree Renee Thomas. So, Kat, how are things going? What have you been up to?
They are going pretty well. I am fully vaccinated, and Thursday, I had a meal in a restaurant with people, including, as I was saying, Sarah Pinsker, who's visiting Seattle. So that was delightful, and that just felt lovely. Yeah, a little weird, little daring, felt kind of dangerous, but cool.
That is dangerous. I have yet to eat out at a restaurant. I have been fully vaccinated for, I don't know, probably a week or two at this point. Yeah, I just, I haven't done it yet. I just haven't done it. I'm kind of afraid to do it. I mean, I'm also like an ultra introvert, so that doesn't really help because I really don't care.
I love talking to people. And in fact, the first day I felt comfortable interacting with folks, I went out to get coffee and I went through the drive-thru and I chit-chatted with the barista. And on the way home, I cried because I was like, I have interacted with another human being on unconsequential things. And it was just fabulous. So, yeah.
Nice. I love it. Yeah, I don't know. For me right now, I'm kind of in this stage of like trying to figure out what cons I'm going to do for the rest of the year, if I'm going to do any more, or if I'm like going to show up to them, or if I'm just going to do the virtual thing. And I know I'd message you about whether you were going to DisCon this year or not.
Tentatively, yes.
Yeah. I haven't decided yet, like, am I going to do virtual or am I going to go in person? Because I have some friends that live there, and I have not seen them since their wedding, which was probably a few years ago. 2018, I think, maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe before that. And it'd be really great to go kind of see them and then go to DisCon as well.
I've got a ton of friends in that area, and I used to live in Baltimore, so I'm a lot of things I'd like to see. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. That's cool. Before we get to our guest today, I have an announcement to make. We are going to have a new co-host.
Yay!
His name is Graeme Barber. Graeme is a lapsed academic, veteran with the Canadian Army with 3 NATO tours overseas under his belt. He's been a commercial and scientific diver. He's done wet site archaeology, and now he mostly writes critiques and is a dad. You can find him over at pocgamer.com. He'll be mostly focusing on TTRPG kind of stuff. So we'll be having him coming on doing some episodes sooner than later. I'm excited.
Ooh, super cool.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to getting something going on with that wing of fandom. So it's going to be pretty neat. All right, let's get our guest on.
Because we've got a very, 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 very cool guest.
Yes, very, very, very cool. I can't wait to talk to her. Okay, when we come back, we will be with Sheree Renee Thomas. Hey all, you know that here at If This Goes On, we believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. Life is not a zero-sum game.
Aurelia Leo Publishing believes the same thing. If you haven't heard of them, they're a publisher that focuses on disabled, queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, and other storytellers of color.
They intend to pursue their mission further with their new podcast, Aurelia.
Twice a month, Aurelia will feature reviews, interviews, and short fiction produced by or about disabled, queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, and other storytellers of color, hosted by our friend Zelda Knight.
They are kicking off with interviews of N.J. Ember in a series of short stories by Edmund Schussel and Miko Rahala. published in the Infinite Metropolis collection.
If you want to hear more about disabled, queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, and other storytellers of color, check them out at aureliapodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts.
All right, and we're back. Our guest today is Sheree Renee Thomas. She is an award-winning fiction writer, poet, and editor. Her work is inspired by myth and folklore, natural science, and Mississippi Delta conjure. 9-Bar Blues, Stories from an Ancient Future by Third Man Books, is her first all-prose collection. She's also the author of 2 multi-genre hybrid collections. The first is Sleeping Under the Tree of Life, which was longlisted for the 2016 Otherwise Award and honored with a Publisher Weekly Star review. And the second, Shotgun Lullabies. She edited the world fantasy-winning, groundbreaking Black speculative fiction anthologies Dark Matter, and is the first to introduce W.E.B. Du Bois's science fiction short stories. Her work is widely anthologized and appears in The Big Book of Modern Fantasy, edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. She is the associate editor of the historic Black Arts Literary Journal, Obsidian, Literature and the Arts in the African Diaspora, founded in 1975, and is the editor of the Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, founded in 1949. She also writes book reviews for Asimov's. She was recently honored as a 2020 World Fantasy Award finalist in the Special Award Professional category for contributions to the genre, and is the co-host of the 2021 Hugo Awards ceremony at DizCon 3 in Washington, D.C. with Malka Older, someone whom we've interviewed.
Woo!
Sheree is the guest of honor of WizCon 45 and a special guest of BozCon 58. She is a Marvel writer and contributor to the groundbreaking anthology Black Panther, Tales of Wakanda, edited by Jesse J. Holland. She lives in her hometown, Memphis, Tennessee, near a mighty river and a pyramid. So welcome, Sheree.
Thank you.
Ooh. So excited to have you on, and there is so much to talk about, obviously, from your bio, because you do so much stuff.
Cool.
First of all, a statement and then a question. The cover of your new book, 9-Bar Blues, is just amazing. I love it so much. It's so phenomenal that both my kids and my wife have stopped at some point in time just to sit there and stare at it and like just look at the details.
Good. Caitlin Parker did that for Third Man Books. Love it. It has little Easter eggs in the art. So each little illustration is connected in some way to one of the 16 stories in the collection.
Yeah, that's so cool. I did notice that. I was, after reading each story, I was like going back to the cover and like, okay, which story is it? What a great collection too. And I have to say, there's a lot about music in here. I mean, if you can't tell from the title, audience. But the interesting thing to me is that you obviously didn't write all of these stories specifically for this anthology because they were written over a long period of time. So you just write about music a lot, and are you a musician? What was the inspiration there?
I live in Memphis. So Memphis is
Fair.
a big music city. There are musicians in my family, and Isaac Hayes is a cousin of mine who was raised by my great-grandmother in Tennessee. And so, yeah, music is a big part of life in a day-to-day basis. So if I'm writing a story about people, there'll probably be music in there somewhere. But as you correctly noted, the stories were written over a period of time from like 2011. I think might have been the oldest, or 2015 might have been the oldest story in there. And when I was looking at stories that were in conversation with each other, I noticed I had a few themes. Music was one of them. Mm-hmm. It was probably one of the strongest ones. But the other one was like bugs, right? So
Wait, did you say bugs?
Yes. So I was like, oh, I could do a whole bug collection here if I wanted to. But some of those stories I put those aside for another day. But yeah.
I have a kind of follow up to that. Do you listen to music while you're writing? Are there sometimes stories inspired by particular songs, or how much does that play a part in your process?
I listen to music every day of my life. It's a big part of just how I'm on the planet.
Mhm.
Can't imagine editing, for example, without having some kind of music around me or near me. Um,
Uh-huh.
it keeps me focused. I like a lot of jazz. I like music in particular that doesn't have a lot of lyrics for different stages of writing.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like my white noise or in the background, sound that you need to keep going. And it also keeps me awake. But yeah, so I don't know. I don't know how other people move through the earth, but I move with music. So a lot of memories, if I ever were to start losing, my memory or what have you, I know that I would probably be able to recall certain things based on music alone.
Yeah,
It's like the
Wow.
soundtrack of your life.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up the thing about the lyrics because I was going to ask you that question. Actually, I know I do a lot of corporate writing for my job, and if I have to read something critically or write and there's lyrics in the song, I don't know. It's just like it like bounces off, and I just can't do it.
Yeah, jazz is really great, and a lot of world music too. I've been
Hmm.
really into Brazilian music lately.
Hmm.
Just kind of falling down the rabbit hole of that, and it's just a really cool, vibe that just keeps you going, keeps your engines rolling, and you keep you focused. So yeah, but I do love music.
Oh yeah,
So Nine Bar Blues came out of that love of music. I mean, just noticing that, hey, a lot of these stories are, have some kind of soundtrack of their own.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Do you have like a top 10 list or a top five list of musical acts that you enjoy writing and editing to?
Um, I love Pharoah Sanders. I love Alice Coltrane. Who else do I listen to? I listen to um, some blues, though it has lyrics, but I'm so used to blues that I can, I can tune it out to some extent. You know what I mean? Um, who else have I listened to lately? Oh, well, as an artist, I can't correctly pronounce their name, so I won't say their name yet. But like I said, a lot of Brazilian music.
Nice.
Cool, cool, cool.
I do have a lot of questions, and most of mine center on the magazine of fantasy and science fiction because for an editor, I think that is in some ways a dream job. You're working with a magazine that has such a strong life in fantasy and science fiction, and I know it's got to be sort of daunting and fabulous and wonderful all at the same time. So I just wanted to ask, how's that going? How are you feeling about the new ship you're steering?
Loving the team, great team. Some of the production crew have been there since I think Furman's time, actually.
Uh,
Others have been there a long time as well, and they're just really great. So they're fun to work with. I love the writers, the reading, the work is a lot. It's a lot of stories,
Yeah.
mhm.
lot of stories, and I just enjoy working with the writers. I have great writers, so so that makes it even wonderful. Just working with great writers like Kat, and that's been a lot of fun. It's interesting because I have to create boundaries, and I can't speak for any other editors, the illustrious, wonderful editors who have edited this magazine and others. But one thing that it has been interesting is like we're publishing in the middle, like everyone else is functioning in the middle of this international pandemic, where
Mhm.
our here in this country, the United States, basic mail, is particularly media mail, has not been predictable. Let's put it like that.
Mhm.
So that's been kind of interesting, and it's just fascinating to me how that process is like, kind of navigating that, because I actually have nothing to do with reader subscriptions. I have nothing to do with you getting your mail or any of that. I edit stories. That's what I do. I don't have anything to do with the website. I don't deal with the website. I don't deal with any of those things. I don't sign the writer's checks. Our company does.
Yeah.
Well, so I get to focus on the writing, on the stories, and creating the rhythm of the issue, and that's the part, that's my lane, and that's what I love. So every now and then I get some other kind of, feedback about stuff that I don't have control over. And I just got to let people know, hey, baby, we don't control you as male. So you're going to function just like I'm functioning.
Yeah.
Waiting up my stuff as well. So that part is just not, that's the kind of like, we are in this world together. We're not in some kind of special portal for which we are not impacted by everything else that has been happening all around us. But I will say being able to connect to art, being able to read has been a wonderful, wonderful gift during some very anxious making times, I guess we'll say. So I know I was grateful to be able to just kind of dive into other people's stories, other ideals, other worlds. And it, just made me feel more hopeful, I guess, about what was actually happening with all the kind of death and destruction around us. I hate to say. It was feeling more and more like we're living in a science fiction story than just, reading about them, right? Or watching a movie of it. So getting to join this great publication with such a tremendous legacy, having published, people that I really spent my life reading, Stephen King in particular, Ursula Le Guin. He's just, or works that made me cry, like Flowers for Algernon, things like that. It's been that part has been a real joy, and I'm really excited to work with writers that we already love and are beloved and admire and respect. And I'm excited to find new voices as well, and to hope that they will have wonderful careers in our field too. So that's been great.
Do you have a particular goal or mission statement for fantasy and science fiction? Is it different than the previous editor?
I don't have a particular mission statement. I'm not a mission statement person. I just want to publish the stories that I can't forget. I want to publish the stories that linger with me. And I'm going to be different from some of the other editors because I'm Southern. Even though I lived in New York for over 2 decades, I still was like the Southerner in New York. I'm a Black woman. I am Gen X, latchkey kid. So we're from the, fuck around and find out generation, I don't take a lot of foolishness from people. Yeah. But I love to laugh, and I love beautiful writing. I love, you can have a great ideal. So and maybe this is something I share in common with some of the other editors, but you can have a great ideal, but if you don't have characters that I'm invested in, that I care about, that I'm interested in, that feel real to me, then I don't care about your ideal. You're just doing an outline. It's a story sketch. It's not a real story for me, because stories are about people or, connecting to people in these extraordinary circumstances, whether you're focusing on the science of the story or if you've created your own world with its own logic and magic or what have you, the fantasy of it, or if it's horror, was meant to, create a sense of dread in us as we're reading the story. And or if it's the slipstream stuff that's really hard to identify and put in one camp, But do I care about your characters? Do I want to see what happens to them in the end? Do I want them to make it through or not? Is this a story that I'm going to talk about with someone else later?
I have a kind of follow-up question on that. Like, one of the things that you mentioned was one of the joys of being an editor is that you do get to discover new voices. You do get to read a new writer and just be like, holy shit, right? This is somebody who's just amazing. And so I'm curious, do you have anybody coming up that you're super excited or stoked about?
I do. I've just published a couple of them that I'm really excited about. It's probably going to be out of order because I've done the March-April issue, which you're the cover story. And I really love that story. That's a great story. And
it was very meaningful to me to be part of that issue. I think I told you that. It's just huge. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The year's been rocking. I feel like Charlie's last issue, the January-February issue, was fantastic. I just really enjoyed reading it from cover to cover. I feel like we kept it flowing with the March, April issue. And the May, June one is just, I mean, I really love the stories in that. A Father's Hand by Stephanie Craner was a new voice that I saw that the story it just hung around in my head. Thinking about it and returning to it. The story Dante's Bones is something I rarely see in science fiction publications, and it was something that was really, really close to my heart, and I wanted to see it in the world. And it's got a wonderful response. That's by Danny and Daryl Jerry. It's fantastic. New voice that I think we'll be hearing more from. And there are some others that I can't tell you yet because they'll be out very soon. Very soon.
You can just say mysteriously, they will be awesome.
And it's also weird because, like, when you ask editors that, it's like asking a writer, like, what's your favorite book? What's your favorite character? And it's like, you love each thing for a different reason. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You love it for a different reason. I was super excited to get a poem from Alan Dean Foster. I was just like,
oh, nice.
Yeah. So we have a wonderful poem of his in the May, June issue. And I love poetry. And I think all of our editors have loved poetry as well. And I'm probably going to be publishing a little bit more of
nice
as I ease on into the seat that I've been thrust in. And because I don't want to use poetry as a filler, or as remnant space.
Right.
But it's, something that stands on its own and is a meaningful experience for readers as well. And I try to organize them in the book, in the issue, in a way that they're in conversation with the works that are around them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nice.
And I really was very happy. One of our recent reviews, one of the reviewers took the time to actually review the poetry. And I don't think I had seen that in, ever. I was pretty excited by that as well, to see that. And as well as the satire. Paulo Di Filippo's satirical stories, I think, are wonderful. And it was great to see it being discussed because he takes a lot of time. He's pretty prolific, of course, to sit down and create these funny stories. It's no easy task.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that. But I'm rubbing my hand. You can't see it, but new stories coming through, new voices.
Awesome.
I love it. So I obviously you've written a lot before you came into the editorship at Fantasy and Science Fiction. What made you want to come in and edit this magazine?
It was a challenge to me because I was like, hey, I haven't read it in a long time. Like, I honestly hadn't read it from cover to cover in a long time. Mm-hmm. And so there was kind of like catching up on it to see what was, what had been happening, what was the aesthetic, what was going on. And it's still great stories, well written, very cool stories. And what I love is multiple genres, right? But for me, it was the idea of like, what is something different that I'll bring to it? And how can I create a space for people? Because I get letters from wonderful readers who will tell me that they've been reading it since they were 10 years old or since they were 15, or they've been reading it since the 50s or what have you. And that's wonderful and great. But who will be saying that, 50 years from now? You know what I mean? And in order for you to have space for new readers, just, these young readers who are not, of the golden age era, they are of this era, right? And they're coming of age in the world that we're living in now. And to have stories that spark their imagination and get them excited and thinking about their world differently and their place in it, those are going to be some different kinds of stories as well. I would love for people to be able to say, 40 years from now, I've been reading F&SF since 2021 or what have you. Or I've been a subscriber that long. It's a different group of people, different stories, different aesthetics perhaps, but that same sense of wonder, I think, that makes us love science fiction and fantasy in the first place. It's got to be there. So,
can you expand a little on this for all the writers that are writing that are listening to this and going, I will gather the secrets of Sheree. But, I mean, one of the classic questions is,
right.
what aren't you seeing that you want to see? What stories do you want to see more of?
Let me think on that. Because I edited before I came to FNSF. I edited a number, other places and other things. I was always editing, so it's not something I wasn't doing. And I just decided, randomly, let me start editing. Editing anthologies, and a literary journal, which is one of the first places that supported my own writing as an emerging writer.
Nice.
Obsidian. I was a preteen, I think, and I saw it on a bookshelf in our library in Memphis, and along with some other literary journals. And I said, one day I'm going to be published in this magazine. And I got rejected a gazillion times, but I kept getting personal rejections that were teaching me. Yeah. Because I didn't learn to write formally. I didn't go to, an English class or, or what have you to learn how to write. I read like most of the writers I love had done. Yeah. And I wrote. And I eventually did get, crack that market, got published in it, and then was asked to guest edit. And they never let me go. But so what is it? What are the secrets of Sheree? One, get my name right. If you're sending me letters that still say Charlie or whatever, I'm going to be looking at you crazy. Let me see because I think it's been a minute. Don't summarize. I tried to put this in the submissions, the call for submissions on Moksha. Gordon will update the website as he can, but don't summarize the short story for me, because my favorite thing is to go into your story cold. I barely even read your cover letter, I just want to read it. I don't want to I don't want to know any more about you than I need to. I just want to read the story, right? And see if it genuinely makes me want to keep reading past the first page, right? That's the thing. So don't bore me in the beginning of the story. Like, get on with the storytelling. Take us get us to the good part soon and make us care about your character, fairly early. What else? Don't email me foolishness. That's the other thing. I don't know. I was talking to Dean about this. Some people are so strange in the world, and I don't know if I realized that until I start editing FNSF. I knew writers we're a strange breed. I know that we're very sensitive sometimes, whatever. But it's just like the audacity that is astonishing to me sometimes. Like, I know I'm not supposed to do this, and yet here I am in your inbox, Sheree Renee Thomas, begging you to do this, that, and the other for me. And I'm just like, when have I ever done that to an editor in my life? Demanded some, like something from them or some weirdness from them. I got a message from some guy that was like, hey, we got to wait 21 days to send you a story. And I'm thinking, yeah, bitch, I don't want to read your story. I want to read 3 stories by the same person every week. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, as soon as we pass on it, here comes another crazy story. Like, time to focus on actual writing, read some books, read the magazine, read the other magazines. It's great work being published all across the genre. Wonderful online magazines, print, just do it up and figure your life out. Then send me a story that you absolutely know I'm going to love. I don't want to read everything you write. So for some people, it seems like some type of compulsion where they've got to send you every single thing. Baby, if you haven't even gotten a personalized rejection letter yet, you're not there yet. You're not there yet. So no, I don't need to see 3 and 4 stories from writers that have never bought anything from, and the magazine has never bought anything from. Just try to strengthen your storytelling and see if that can help. You know what I mean?
Don't do that thing where it's like, I have a drawer full of 25 stories and you are going to see every single one by the time.
You hear my laughter? It's not a number games for me. I don't need to be able to say, we received 20,000 short stories. Because at the end, I know that like a third of them are coming from the same crazy people who sent me 500 stories. Like, I don't, no. We have a slot for maybe at the most a dozen fiction pieces, a dozen, maybe. Uh-huh. That's if we're, I'm very, very clever with the limbs. If there's a novelette or a novella, less, right? If there are a couple in the novelettes, even, less space. Out of the thousands of stories that come in each month, I only have a spot for 6 to a dozen, 6 times a year. That's it. Mm-hmm. Those stories better be cold. They better be cold. They better be so good. Yeah. That we're all like, whoa, did you read this story? Somebody should film this story. You can see it in different mediums because it hits you so many ways. That's a lot. I mean, I'm writing. I send out my stories. I know what it is to be rejected or what have you. I'm just saying, make your life easy. Do not piss off your editor. You're not enduring yourself in a way that makes you stand out positively. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just write the best work that you can and keep it moving. Yeah.
I think don't email foolishness needs to be
on. Don't email me foolishness. I don't control your mail. We have digital subscriptions. Yeah. What else? Cover art is Gordon's favorite thing. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Write me something cool and fun that only you could write.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know. Yeah.
So what are your opinions on using fiction as a political tool?
I feel like all fiction is political. Every single thing that's written down. Mm-hmm. It's this whole fake performative, objective, thing. Humans don't do objective well. All right. Yeah. Even when you're looking at nonfiction or creative nonfiction, whatever, articles, it's the questions that aren't asked that shape the piece, right? Mm-hmm. And the questions you don't ask is influenced by who you are as a person, that has a social value, a political value, and a status in your society, right? Everything that you do is shaped by these things. So to pretend that fiction of all things somehow is a space of reality that is, devoid of being politicized, I think that's just disingenuous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So does it need to be overt? I don't know. Depends on the story. I've read some works that clearly, were in response to things that were happening in the world around them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it can speak, the work spoke past, the moment in which it was written, because unfortunately humans, we're not evolving that fast. Our technology is, right? But in terms of character and impulses and this need for everything to be hierarchical or whatever, we haven't really evolved that far. So when you do stories that are critiquing some of the faults or weaknesses that a writer may see in their society, they're probably going to last. Those stories are probably going to have meaning for people long past when it was written, because those common themes, those systemic themes are going to still be there most of the time in the society. Mm-hmm. I just feel like if you're going to do an deeply political story, the stakes are higher for you to make it engaging and interesting for your readers.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So it's not just a polemical thing, but it's something that still holds up as art.
Right. It can't be just a tirade against some political view or another, right? It has to actually have structure and a story and everything to it.
Yeah, I'm curious of where the question is coming from. What's going on? What's happening? What's happening in the world?
You're asking me?
Well, yeah.
No, this is something we talk about on this podcast. It's kind of part of our mission statement, really.
The reason that we talk a lot about it is that the podcast started as a hope punk centered podcast, and thinking of hope punk as very much political fiction in that it's, narratives of community and I don't know what like rebellion, but certainly anti-corporate stuff, which the story that the story that I have for you is not the least political story. It's sort of like hashtag eat the rich, right? It's
yeah, I know they want to avoid politics because that we're in the world. They're watching the news. It's mostly very depressing news. No matter where you are on the spectrum, there's always something to be unhappy about, I guess, in the news. Yeah. And so people want to read things to escape, but that means different things for different people. Sometimes, as you said, like with Hope, people want to feel hopeful and they want to feel that things are possible, right? And if you cannot conceive of it, you can't even imagine it, how are you going to build that reality in the real world? So for me, speculative fiction is critical, to not only not just as an art form, but it is critical in terms of recording the now, right? Recording the now. Yeah. Writers are observers of the world. We're participants, but we're witnesses too, right? And you're in a particular moment. And I think it's part of your job, really, to create art from what is happening around you, from what you're observing and processing and thinking about, and to help your readers experience different ways of being, on the page, So yeah, for me, all art is political. And I'm looking real side eye at people who pretend otherwise.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, the insistence that fiction can be not political is itself a political stance.
It really is such a luxury. What a great privilege.
Yeah.
Right. I just did the timed visits to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, right? So I was going to some of my favorite wings, and I've noticed I went up to the modern and contemporary art section, and they were changing out some art and putting in some new art. So I'm looking over that little balcony where you look down, and he's dropping on them. They were freaking out because they thought something had a scratch on it, but it was just glue. But anyway, this huge, like wall-sized piece of art. I couldn't see it from the angle; it was on the wall, but I saw them gathering around it, and I'm looking at the art, and I'm just like, wow, people literally not only sold this art, right? Some of this art, and I'm revealing some of my weaknesses. I need some help with abstract art because some of it I have a response to it. Some of it there's just nothing happens for me. You know what I mean? But and I'm looking at them like, not only did they sell this, but it is in the Metropolitan Museum of Art's collection.
Yeah.
For generations to see. Year after year. And they knew that someone was going to buy this when they made this. They've created this career and they're able to do this. And I just thought, anyone that's looking at the art world, visual art world, any part of the art world, and not even seeing all the layers of how it's politicized, right? You're missing out. One thing I was kind of surprised by was the number of women artists that I saw in the modern section, and I thought that seemed like a kind of a newer initiative. I could be wrong. I've been, like I said, I spent a lot of time in that museum when I lived in New York, and to see so many different women artists, that was encouraging. That was exciting. But even that is a political thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whose work gets represented, who gets a gallery, whose works is reviewed, it's shown, which shows you're a part of, all of that. it's political.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I think Kat and I are absolutely on the same wavelength with that sort of thing.
Well, I think one of the things that we focus on often in the podcast is this idea that stories change the world, right? And that stories like the ones published, the ones that you write, the ones that you edit, are ones that help carry us forward into hopefully a better future, right?
I hope so, but what the time is showing us now, I guess, as always, is that people have such competing ideals of what makes a better future, right? And, and who has the right to have a better future? We still aren't in agreement that all people should have certain rights and dignity. Clearly that is not something that is a universal belief on the planet right now. And that's problematic, for us to continue and to have such high ideals about who we are as humans. Everybody wants to go into the stars. They want to go up above. They want to travel and explore and reach out. But what is the point if you're bringing the same, barbaric ideals with you?
Yeah.
Right.
We got to work. We got to work on some things, and on ourselves as a species, on how we organize our societies, what is acceptable for us, what isn't acceptable for us. I feel like it's in this country, it should be unacceptable for people to be living on the streets. It should be unacceptable for, benches that are in the parks to have spikes on them because you don't want homeless people to sleep on them. You know what I mean? Certain things should be unacceptable. But, like I said, we all have different ideals. And it's just a disconnect. We were like, oh, yeah, we're flying to Mars. And you can't figure out how to do it in your country. Like, I'm just like, what are you doing?
So we have 2 or 3 questions left that we ask everybody who's on here. What is bringing you hope right now?
What's bringing me hope? Oh my gosh. That's a good question. What is bringing me hope right now? There's always something new. There's always something that I would never have thought of at all that I end up reading. And I'm just like, wow, people are so creative. People are kind of brilliant. You know what I mean? And so even on a day that's been a little rough, being able to just go and find, the work of people who are still hopeful, who are still creating their work under a lot of times under great adversity. They have a lot of other things happening and they're still carving out the time to tell their stories. That makes me feel hopeful because that's why I'm, got into writing and publishing in the first place. Just the joy of connecting with people and, telling the stories that make us think and feel and imagine ourselves or our place in the world a little bit differently. That gives me hope. I'm excited to see a lot more different people being published these days. Even though as soon as you're feeling good about it, another article will come out and it will show like, the same horrible statistics or whatever. And you're like, still haven't moved the needle that far. But there are so many different people who are getting a shot at publishing. There are stories and the kinds of stories that they want to tell. You know what I mean? That's really great to see. That's good to see. I'm happy about, I feel like we live in a science fiction world and everything that comes on television is almost is science fiction or fantasy. And I think that's great for writers when they're being paid. So
Right.
yeah, when their work is being honored in that way. So I love all the adaptations that are happening, whether it's, for the streaming platforms or, for the big screen or their graphic novels or what have you. That's really, really cool to see. One of our F and SF writers, Rich Larson, had a short story that he published. I think it was with Lightspeed that was adapted for a series on Netflix. And I just think that's the coolest thing. I'm so happy for him. I hope he's happy with, this version of his story.
Yeah.
I think it was the Love Robots. Was it Love, Robots, and Death too? Yeah.
Death, Love, and Robots.
Yes. Yeah.
Next question. What are your upcoming projects?
I have upcoming projects that I cannot discuss. But you will hear very soon about one of them for sure. I have an anthology that I co-edited that's coming out this October called Trouble the Waters, Tales from the Deep Blue. And it's speculative fiction, all water-oriented, coming out from Third Man Books. Wonderful, wonderful writers. Some that you know and love, like Nalo Hopkinson and Marie Vibert and Jakira Diaz and Rian Amakar Scott and Maurice Brodus and Linda Atkinson and other wonderful writers from around the world. And it's going to be really, really a fun collection. And it has all the things that I love, all the things, and those things are fantasy, of course, science fiction, horror. I love horror, so maybe that might be a little thing that might be a little different for FNSF while I'm editing it. You may see a little bit more horror in the mix because I do really love it as well. And I just finished the call for submissions for Africa Risen, which I'm co-editing with Oginichowe Ekpeke and Zelda Knight for Tor.com Publishing. And it's a collection of science fiction and fantasy of Africa.
Yeah, Oginichowe has told me about that, but I did not know it was for Tor. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, then our last question that we always ask everyone, where can we find you?
You can find me in the Moksha portal. Piling through stories. No, or you can if it's not raining, like today it's rainy. I on the weekend I take my reading outside. So it's not as tedious. I'm out in the air, in the fresh air and the sun. If you're talking about virtual spaces, I'm usually on Facebook under my name, Sheree Renee Thomas, or you might see a cranky post on the FNSF on that site, or I'm on Twitter under Black Pot Mojo. Don't follow me if you don't like Black people. I'm just going to say that. Don't follow me. You're like, what does that mean? That means I'm actually Black. So it's not going to be all FNSF every 2 seconds. It's going to be stuff that relates to me and my life and my interests and my family and stuff. So you don't like Black people, keep it moving. It's going to be our crazy sense of humor on there, Southern humor and everything else. Where else am I? Occasionally on IG under my name. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. We appreciate your time. So great to talk to you. I still have like 50 questions I could ask you, but I know everybody's time is valuable. And we're just glad that you were able to spend this last hour with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Kat. Yay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so that was our interview with Sheree Renee Thomas. Before we move on, I just want to remind everybody that we have a Patreon. So if you really like what we're doing and you want to support us, please come out to our Patreon. We recently just had a Patreon pick. They got to pick someone who wanted to come on to the podcast. I'm not going to announce that name yet because they have not accepted yet. We do other things like we release bonus episodes early there. In fact, there's a bonus episode released there right now that is not released to anybody else. I've also been doing some 5-minute book reviews there, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. You can get discounts to Kat's classes, for example. Yeah. So if you want to go and check that out, it all starts at $2 per month, which is, less than a cup of coffee at most places.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've gone through the business stuff, what did you think about the interview, Kat?
I thought that was terrific. And often when we interview people, I know them. I really like when we did Cadwell Turnbull. I really loved his book. But it is just so cool to me to have been part of that, of Sheree's first issue, and just kind of to see her period, her reign has been launched and wonderful things will happen. And it's just so neat. I just ecstatic about that. So that's fun to do.
I need to go out and find a hard copy of that magazine, actually. I've been thinking about that for a while. So
yeah. People should think about subscribing. One of the things that you can do is take copies to cons and get authors to sign them. They usually like doing that. And it gives you something to read post-apocalypse when the cloud has dissolved and all the electronic texts have gone away. Oh, you should subscribe today.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if you're a major nerd like me, you get the editors to sign them, because
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, she was great. As always, all the people we get on here are just so smart and so nice and so awesome. And I love her sense of humor. I love the little voices that she did for people. That was hilarious. I was dying. So that's our interview today, but we do have a new segment coming up here with our dear friend Rick Claypool, and he just had a novella come out called The Mold Farmer. And the segment is called Spec Fic Partisan, and he's going to talk about speculative fiction and politics. So I hope you all enjoy.
Imagine a dystopian world. Oppressed masses suffer and struggle, and dangerous truths are suppressed. The dangerous truths are suppressed to protect the society's rulers. The dangerous truths are so explosive that when they are finally revealed, the balance of power shifts. The powerless overthrow the powerful. The injustice at the core of the dystopia collapses, and in its place is hope for a new, better world. It's a familiar story, a metaphor for education. Acquire the hidden knowledge, change the world. Glasses on, true enemies in view, all out of bubble gum, ready to kick ass. Except this exciting and hopeful narrative isn't quite right now. Because right now, one of society's dystopian overlords is also its prime fiction delivery system, and non-fiction too. I'm talking, of course, about Amazon. Amazon, which monitors its warehouse workers' every movement and disciplines the inefficient. Amazon, which uses faulty algorithms to fire workers and doesn't even care that its automated HR makes mistakes because using it cuts wage expenses. Amazon, which puts driver-facing cameras in delivery vehicles to surveil delivery drivers, whose lack of brakes means many are forced to pee in bottles. Amazon, which has hired Pinkertons to combat labor organizing in its own workforce. Those who know their history will recognize the name Pinkerton as the same infamous anti-union vigilante force that Carnegie and Frick unleashed against striking steelworkers in the 1892 Battle of Homestead. The coronavirus pandemic has been extraordinarily profitable for Amazon. With commerce for a time driven almost exclusively online, the corporation's profits doubled over the previous years to $6 billion. Founder and former CEO Jeff Bezos' wealth increased over the past year by more than $90 billion, sealing his status as the wealthiest person in the world. His total wealth has swollen to nearly $200 billion. Amazon dominates the online book market and commands a substantial portion of the streaming video market. Pretty much every book that will tell you all you need to know about capitalist abuses, worker exploitation, big tech monopolies, and global supply chain horrors and human rights abuses is available on Amazon, as are books that describe in painstaking detail the specific harms caused by Amazon itself. Pretty much every book that narrates the downfall of a dystopia is on Amazon too. Okay, so maybe this is a little bit much. Kind of overwhelming and depressing, maybe. Now, to be clear, my point is not to shame individual readers for buying books on Amazon. Alternative online bookstores, such as bookshop.org and IndieBound, do exist. But undoing Amazon's dominance will take much, much more than behavioral changes by a few well-informed individuals. And I don't want to blackpill listeners with nihilistic hopelessness either. Acquiring the hidden knowledge, however you acquire it, is still an important step toward overthrowing the dystopia. It's what you do next with the knowledge that really matters. So sure, avoid buying books from Amazon if you want, but where individual action falls short, organized action can prevail. Join an organization that fights corporate power and capitalism. Tell the members of Congress who represent your district and state to support legislation to break up Amazon. Representative Pramila Jayapal's Ending Platform Monopolies Act would give regulators the authority to force a breakup. Support union drives, which, if successful, can shift power from Amazon's bosses to Amazon's workers. Of course, even with organized action, victory is never guaranteed. These are long-term campaigns that Amazon will fight with every step. But where isolated individuals can be discouraged and give up when progress doesn't happen fast enough, a movement can gain momentum even in the face of short-term setbacks. I take solace in the fact that joining collective efforts, forcing Amazon to face its abuses, fostering a culture, an ecosystem of resistance to its power is a necessary precondition for change. At the very least, such efforts challenge Amazon's power to consolidate control. You can't bring down a dystopia without a resistance. So sure, get informed, then take action. And, when possible, take action with others. Together, for the long haul, resisting in every way we can is the only way to take on a corporate behemoth like Amazon. Sunglasses on, all out of bubblegum, ready to kick ass.
Hey all, I just wanted to pop in and add that since Rick recorded this, Jeff Bezos' wealth has increased to $211 billion. If This Goes On, Don't Panic is edited by Alan Bailey with production by Sound Maiden. Our theme music is by Father Flamethrower. Additional music is by Christopher Snydrowski and outro music by Seul Aradia. Intro by Dave Robinson. Special thanks to our guest, Sheree Renee Thomas. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you again soon.
Letting